They're playing political ping pong. They're trying to do pork barrel fucking politics instead of just putting forth a straight bill like Rashida Tlaib just put out the other day. Now, you don't have to accept that bill, but we should have a bill for this fucking situation and this situation only. How are we going to help the American people out? And both sides now, and here comes Uncle Joe with his clouded, stupid fucking mind, just platitudes all over the place. I'm sorry, you have the next one, the green screen. You tell us, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, this... So it was, I set it at 7 minutes, I think, 7 something.
You got the times in there, right?
This is simply too much at stake. Too many lives, too many livelihoods, too many homes and families and businesses and communities at risk. I've laid out a very detailed, in-depth plan for what I think we should be doing. You can read it on joebiden.com. We need immediate action on testing, on research for treatments and vaccines, on leading a global response to beat the virus everywhere. But today, I want to focus on just 4 key points of action. First, the president must take immediate steps to increase our capacity, the capacity of our healthcare system, to treat the sickest coronavirus patients safely. I'm glad the president has finally activated the National Guard. Now we need the armed forces and the National Guard to help with hospital capacity, supplies, and logistics. We need to activate the reserve corps of doctors and nurses and beef up the number of responders dealing with these crush of cases. And
look at his hand. Oh no, this was the part.
It froze.
It
froze when he froze.
In a position that we are. Well, let me go to the second thing. I've spoken enough of that. The president must use the Defense Production Act.
No, you skipped it. You skipped the part where he was. That's hilarious. That is so fucking weird. He literally goes, his hand goes like that. That is really weird.
That's not weird.
That was the whole part. That was the whole point.
I know, but that's what they'll do. They'll fuck that shit up so you can't go back and show how stupid he is.
We are. Well, let me go to the second thing. I've spoken enough of that.
No,
the president must use the Defense Production Act.
It was before that. But,
oh God.
And then at 88 minutes and 55 seconds, I don't know.
Okay, let's talk about what he's saying right away. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the whole point of showing that was to show, because he basically, he's reading off a teleprompter, and something happens with it where his left hand goes like this, and he's like, oh, like, stop. Like, he's like, and then he's like, wait a minute. And he can't follow the teleprompter. And then the following one, he also can't, he says things like, he forgets what decade we're in. He talks about 2020 and the 40s and then like 1920. And it's a disaster. It's just a disaster.
Jackie Pagao says Biden looks like a corpse, and this is our guy. He ain't my guy. I ain't even going to fucking vote for him.
Yeah.
Please,
no, that's
that
the
guy's
Democratic
terrible.
Party elites guy. That's not our guy. But
I mean, they're willing to put this donkey out there right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And goddamn, in the middle of a coronavirus epidemic, and it's just fucking scary right now.
Look at all these videos. I looked up Biden's speech and I put the filter to today. Okay, so there it is. There's a full one, so we'll pull that up. But let's see. 2YT said Joe Biden's cringy coronavirus speech. Heartlands, Biden's speech fail. Let's see. Disastrous live stream by this guy. Who's this guy? I'm just saying all these titles are Biden back from dead for awful live stream.
Dude, it's even Papi Chulo got one there too as well, my boy. I mean, hey Papi. I mean, it's just fucking nuts with this guy.
Old Joe Biden stares into space.
It's nuts with this guy. This guy has dementia. He's stupid, really. And the Democratic Party pushed forth this guy, and you have Hollywood elites. He's the choice of a lifetime, fam. Says Neeraj Tanden.
He's not. He's been gone for 5 days. He's not really giving actual solutions. He's saying we have to do this, but he's not saying how and how we need to pass something and how we need to do this. He's not being specific. He's being very general, because if he's specific, then he has to specify. Oh, I mean, yeah, we need healthcare, but not Medicare for all. We just need, for like free vaccines. And like it's just he's just a terrible candidate. He's a worse candidate than Hillary Clinton, and I never thought that was possible.
He says a lot without saying anything. Really, to tell you the truth, without being specific about certain things, and And once again, like I said, they should just pass a bill dealing nothing else, nothing with the financial sector. And don't tell me that you can't do that. You can. Just specifically on what you're going to do for the American people. How are you going to bail them out for this time of need? If you don't like Rashida's bill, $2,000 and then $1,000 a month for a year after, okay, we'll negotiate off that. Don't say that you have to give this money to this financial institution or that institution or that for small businesses. Go work on a bill for small businesses, but right away, pass a bill that just helps the American people. It's March 22nd now, right? 23rd? Yeah. Okay, we're a week away from freaking getting really in some serious trouble. And right now, people are running out of money for food. Get them the money and the resources they need right now. Democrats, Republicans, stop playing fucking politics and ping pong. Get in a room and get it done. And we don't need more of this bullshit from fucking Joe Biden. Nothing specific.
And well, just as you find the video or whatever, so Biden also spoke with Obama about the VP possibilities, and one of the things he mentioned that I wanted to
right up there.
I wanted to mention was that he specified that the person who was going to become VP was going to need to become president possibly the first day. And he said the most important thing, and I've actually talked to Barack about this, the most important thing is that there has to be someone who the day after they're picked is prepared to be president of the United States of America if something happened. And this is really weird, a weird thing to say. Obviously, he's up there in age, as is Bernie Sanders, but I've never heard Bernie Sanders said, I need to pick a VP that's prepared to take over the presidency because something might happen. Like, I don't know. I just genuinely, he was gone for 5 days. It was weird. Nobody said anything. And we were all like wondering why. Instead, the mainstream media turns it around and attacks Sanders for not going to the Senate vote, even though it was a cloture. And we're going to talk about that more. But,
Isn't he one of the 5 Democrats in the Senate that's quarantined? I know Paul wasn't there today because he was quarantined.
No, the 5 Republicans were quarantined, not Democrats.
Okay. I thought it was 5 total, and I thought they were mostly Democrats. Okay,
no,
so
it was all Republicans.
So,
it was a Republican bill. It was a check. It was a check to big corporations. It was nothing to do with any sort of progressive or any sort of direct aid.
You mean
to
today's
people.
Bill?
The Senate.
Yeah, no, the Senate bill, once again, wasn't direct enough for the people. It allowed them to apply for tax credits, whatnot. And, there were hula hoops and there was assistances. But once again, you have to negotiate from a different point of view of like, okay, we need a better bill. Both sides are trying to throw shit in that they want rather than saying, let's put all that stuff aside and let's just work on the individuals, the Americans, and get them the money they need.
Because both sides don't want to give people money, Pasta. Yeah. They just want to give corporations their money. They don't. They're not doing this. They're not going to give people money. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that later. Did you find it, or should we just? Okay.
Coordinate getting medical supplies out to every corner of the country, so we don't have governors competing against one another. As of late yesterday, we're told that the president still has not activated the authority under the Defense Production Act, which I and others call for him to invoke immediately and act on, to direct American manufacturers to make essential supplies. Trump keeps saying that his word.
It was just the one where he's just he messes up. He talks about the decade we're in.
In addition to that.
There you go. That's one of them.
Make sure that we
move the teleprompter up, asshole.
We are.
He's going like this to you.
Let me go the second. I've spoken enough of that.
Fam, I'm glad we went on to that.
And in addition to that, we have to make sure that we are in a position that. And in addition to that, we have to make sure that we are in a position that we are. Well, let me go to the second thing. I've spoken enough of that. The president must use the Defense Production Act.
The other one is shortly after it.
That was just one clip.
Yeah, that was just the one.
That was just the one clip, but we could see what a donkey this guy is.
Yeah. So he basically says, like 100 years ago in 1920, 1940, 2020, and he just gets his all of his words so mixed up. It's funny.
We
It's
need
hilarious.
to activate the reserve corps of doctors and nurses and beef up the number of responders dealing with these crush of cases. And in addition to that, we have to make sure that we are in a position that we are. Well, let me go to the second thing. I've spoken enough of that. The president must use the Defense Production Act to radically increase the supply of critical goods needed to treat patients and protect our healthcare workers and first responders.
He's straight up reading that teleprompter, and he said he had time to like look over things and address the coronavirus. He can't address it without looking at a teleprompter. I mean, this is the guy that's going to be the commander-in-chief of the United States. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Nah.
I really wish we can go look inside those machines and see
No.
if people really fucking voted for this
didn't.
guy, because I would bet that they didn't. But then again, hey, man, I guess we're just going to accept the results that are given to us,
We
right?
are not going to accept the results, but the rest of America might. But those of us who know better
Fucking
need to
terrible.
continue talking about it. And people are talking about it more now. They are. A lot of pushback on Emma. So we'll see about that. So this is what
Tim Canova?
exactly. So
Cowkolinsky made a tweet about it, about Biden's speech. I'll never forgive Democratic primary voters who chose this over social democracy. And then Tim Canova tweets at Kyle, will you forgive the electronic voting machines that curiously never seem to reflect the will of voters, or the many pundits who find all kinds of explanations, like blaming voters to avoid the conclusion that the software is rigged and these are fake elections?
So that kind of spun us off today. I think we both made comments on this one, because then somebody,
hello, somebody
made another comment, right? What's her name? Emma V?
Emma. So Emma said he lost it. There's a conspiracy around every corner with him these days. Crying wolf on election after election without proof discredits the left. And the thing with her is that she just okay, I'm just going to read what I said, because I said, says the woman who propped up $14.1 million super PAC Warren, and with TYT still pushing Biden to pick Warren as a VP. Anyone who's not an idiot knows there's flat out proof of not only voter suppression, but election tampering. I've been covering it nonstop. We both have. And it's not new.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were like, yeah, this Emma's like, she's wrong. She's in the wrong. I can't believe she's saying this.
I made a
They
comment
put the
too.
Brenda Snipes stuff. They put the Broward County elections, and people were stating, look, the 11-year-old who hacked into a replica of a voter system. I mean, there's nothing new. This is not anything, and when she, on her tweet, she got a lot of pushback. And the reason I'm commenting on this is because a lot of people have been afraid of speaking out against election integrity issues and calling it that, or calling it rigging, or calling it voter fraud, or election fraud, and calling it lack of transparency because of the connotations from people like Emma.
Yeah.
That this isn't that this is conspiracy theory. But at this point, I think the majority of people, at least this time around, are seeing it. And it's really interesting to see the elite journalist class who completely dismisses it. I mean, think about it. We're the only ones talking about this, aside from Jimmy Dore, who has kind of touched on it, and Nico, who was obviously last time around touched on it. And everybody else is really kind of just like, yeah, well, we're not going to touch that. Why? Because it brings a lot of doubt. It makes you take a risk when you're addressing this. This is why the Bernie Sanders campaign hasn't addressed this, but that is to their detriment, because they absolutely should. And at this point, it's there's no denying it. I mean, we've been covering this, you guys. You guys can watch the videos we've been talking.
Yeah.
It's absolutely real.
And I left a tweet that kind of says, well, this is what we have to think about. All right, so we know for a fact that, I put down to her thing when she says that, it's just the, once again, it's the conspiracy theorists. I said, Emma, have you even talked to any election integrity activists? Because I never see her talk to any of them. Do you understand what black box voting is? Huh? Do you understand why open source software is so important? Here's the thing, Em. I can't prove it's fixed, but you can't prove it's legit. We can't look inside. Public elections, hello? So, I mean, we have to change the whole conversation when it comes to this, and I know we're trying to do so right now, because that's the thing that's like, the monkey in the room, the elephant in the room, whatever you want to say
the
in
elephant,
the room.
yep.
the elephant in the room is the fact is that we have in 50 states proprietary software in these machines that we're not allowed to look at. Whether you believe in counting them all, whatever audit process, we shouldn't have closed source software in these machines. I'm
Johnny,
sorry, fam.
If you go down the comments of where I made that tweet against Emma, where I made the tweet, and you go down in the comment section, and you go all the way down, there's a woman called Progressive Joy. She's all the way at the end almost. She has a really good tweet.
Right there.
And this is how I explain it. This is entirely how I say it.
Read it.
See my response to the thread. People like Emma expect a smoking gun in mainstream media to report election rigging plus voter suppression. Not going to happen until we legally hold the DNC accountable for election fraud. To discredit people trying to make light of this is a gregarious of Emma. So, or Evie, Emma Vagina. So that's what I mean. Like, when people ask for proof, they want like mainstream media and the New York Times, who benefit off the rigging, to say something. That's never going to happen. It's never going to happen until we can prove it ourselves. And these people hold all the power. So that's the bottom line.
That's all I got to say about that. I mean, we're going to be talking to more election integrity activists on this show. We're going to make it a point so people understand that at the very least, we have to make sure that there's no proprietary software. There's so many things we have to do, fam, right?
Yeah.
We have the whole overall of our whole election system, from what we do, the voter suppression that's done purposely. We have to let people understand how they do this, why they do this. So, our work's cut out for us, but we're going to make sure that we get it done and talk about this.
And just one more thing. When people say that, Bernie just doesn't have validity, Bernie just doesn't have electability, like young people didn't come out to vote. It's so insulting. When I saw the opposite, I saw many young people come out to vote. I saw Bernie get the working class. I saw Bernie get the Latino vote. I saw all these things, and it's not reflected in the data. I saw all these people canvassing and saying, oh yeah, we're going to win this in the landslide. It's not reflected in the data. You're not going to tell me that King County was won by Biden, or that Flint, Michigan was won by Biden, or even Detroit and Massachusetts, places where he didn't really campaign. It's just not possible just based on the previous data alone. The exit polls, it's a bunch of things. It's not just one solid thing that's going to say, okay, yeah, it's right. It's a lot of things.
I really wish he would speak up and have lawyers on this. He has the money. He should have protested the first Super Tuesday through and through. And we can't do anything until he makes that move. Unfortunately,
I disagree that we can't do anything. I disagree that. I think people are going to be the ones to bring it up.
But he can do the most, and
he can do it. He can do it, but he's not going to do
cheated.
it. That's the thing.
Yeah,
that's the thing. He's not going to do it. So that doesn't mean we shouldn't act and do something on our own, like what we're doing.
I understand, but it's his case. It's against him. He's the one who has to.
Nobody's denying. Nobody's denying he has to do it. I'm just denying the fact that people shouldn't do anything. That's what I don't agree with.
Yeah, I hear you, but he should do something.
He's not going to. So the dismissal of the Democrats are still trying to push Joe Biden. And Joe Biden, of course, as we've all seen, is obviously not fit to be president. But they've kind of turned this around and attacked Sanders in a way that is entirely unfair. So let me start by the healthcare, because they say that healthcare is on the ballot in November. And the Democrats had the audacity to post this tweet that was talking about healthcare being on the ballot in November. And they were saying healthcare is on the ballot. Healthcare is on the ballot in November, blah, 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 blah. And what I just said, Joe Biden is going to veto Medicare for all. And, they're talking about healthcare, but Joe Biden is the one is literally telling people he's going to veto Medicare for all. Now, apart from Joe Biden being the guy that wants to veto Medicare for all, he's also the guy that isn't necessarily good against Trump. Again, people have this thing where they're like, well, I guess Bernie's not viable. No, Bernie's viable. He's just, the votes aren't being counted. And so Daily Kos had this article where they were talking about how Joe Biden will cost Democrats the House and the Senate. And it's really interesting, because a lot of the Democratic Party wants to use this whole viability factor on Joe Biden, saying that, oh, look, see, he's winning all these states, so he's going to beat Donald Trump. And that's not the reality. If you look at this House election result, if GOP keeps control, that's what it's going to look like. And the reality is that Joe Biden's going to lose to Donald Trump, hands down. And so once he loses to Donald Trump, guess what's going to happen? The Republicans are going to completely take over the House and the Senate. And if you guys actually care about, stopping the Republicans and their policies and stopping people like Donald Trump by putting Joe Biden on the ticket. You're pretty much ensuring that we're going to have an entirely red Congress, an entirely red executive branch, and probably an entirely red judicial branch. And that is what is at stake. And this is precisely why I believe Bernie Sanders can't drop out, because we're screwed if that happens. And the other thing is that visibility. Joe Biden was gone for 5 days, and he comes back. He has a disastrous speech that really answers nobody's question, doesn't calm people down. Bernie Sanders has been on for the last few days talking about the coronavirus, what we need to do, giving people solutions, bringing other people to discuss, bringing in Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, talking to different kinds of people. And because Bernie didn't show up to the Senate cloture vote, which was a vote that they needed 60 and they only had 47, and Bernie was going to vote no anyway. They're all on Twitter and everywhere. It's talking about how Bernie Sanders should have been there and he's a senator and he should show up and be there. And I was really pissed off because there was a lot of ex-Tulsi supporters too, kind of going on that train. Like, where was Bernie Sanders? Why didn't he go vote? This isn't a vote that I want him to vote on or that I care about him voting on, because it's not going to get anywhere. It was one big distraction set to, the whole thing was a giant check to the corporations. It was a giant check to the elite class with zero provisions about how to actually help the working class. And so he had addressed it actually when he did his live stream. In the beginning, he was like, yeah, there's a vote. It's just one giant welfare check and it's disastrous. We need to do better. We need to give people directly $2,000, blah, blah, blah. And he went on and he was like, okay, let's talk about what's going on here. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but everybody is really scared. Everybody is really like anxious. And it's not as much about the coronavirus, sadly, as it is about the economic strain that this whole thing is causing on people. People are losing their jobs. They're being laid off. They're going to be unable to pay their rent in a week. They're, running out of money for food. They're also inside, not being able to communicate. And how do we move forward when people can't address their basic needs, which are their health, their food, and their livelihood, their home?
Yeah. Well, that bill wasn't completely just a sham. It wasn't a good bill, but it should be. Some people got to get in a room and fucking negotiate a bill, and they're not doing that. And that's the whole thing. And both sides are sucking this up. They're terrible right now, both sides. And once again, it's going to be the American people who are going to suffer the most at the end of the day.
Well, by both sides, I mean, it's literally Nancy Pelosi and then the Donald Trump people. I mean, they're both awful on this. But again, I wouldn't want to waste my time to go in and possibly get coronavirus, because 5 of those people that didn't show up out of the 13 that they needed didn't show up because they have coronavirus. And I don't want Bernie Sanders to go into the Senate, and for what? And instead of addressing and being visible and being out there. So that's the whole point, is that Bernie Sanders has made himself visible. He has made himself accessible to the public. And that's something Joe Biden hasn't done. And
yeah, but they're not going to replace Joe Biden with Bernie Sanders. So if we keep trying to say, okay, they should replace Biden with Bernie Sanders, we're just talking up whatever right now. It's never going to happen. They didn't do it last time when Hillary Clinton almost passed out cold. That's right. What we want. That's not what the establishment wants.
Exactly. But nobody's claiming the establishment is going to do that. What I am saying is it's so blatant, and we can put it in their face as to what is happening with Joe Biden. I'm not the kind to give up and say, oh yeah, you just ignore everything and pretend.
Nobody said you ignore everything, but that's the whole thing. This whole pipe dream to think that Bernie Sanders is going to be the replacement for Joe Biden is nothing more than a pipe dream.
But here's the thing: if you think Andrew Cuomo is going to be the replacement for Joe Biden and they're going to get away with it, you're also wrong, because people are pissed. Nothing is happening. Nothing is getting done for the American people.
And it hasn't been getting done. It hasn't been getting done for a while.
But it's far worse.
This is the straw.
But it's far worse.
That's going to break the camel's back.
If this isn't it, if this pandemic isn't it, I don't know what will.
It's the money. If they don't get the money to the people right now, then that's the thing. And both sides have to get in a room.
I don't think it's equal
get this shit done
on both sides. I mean, I think there's a side. I consider the Nancy Pelosi's and the Donald Trumps, not even Donald Trump's, but the people behind Trump, because Trump was ready to enact socialism and give people money. But it's the Senate that's like, no. And Nancy Pelosi is working with them.
Yeah.
She is refusing to give people the money that they need.
Exactly.
So that's what I mean by, I don't equate like Bernie Sanders with Trump. Because to me, that's just ridiculous. Bernie Sanders is trying to give people money. Donald Trump was trying to do it, and then he turned his back, and then he went with the Senate. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, but there are people actually putting out real solutions, and I disagree. I think it's absolutely important for us to point out how Bernie Sanders is there facing the nation, and maybe people will do something about it. That's all we can do. For the longest time, we've relied on the establishment doing something. Oh, if they're not going to let us, oh, well. That's not how it is. We need to fight back. People are literally, their lives are at stake. It's a lot bigger than just what the Democratic establishment wants.
Yeah, but nothing's getting done, and nobody's brokering a deal. Nobody's getting in the room, and nobody's making it.
Well, I mean, but if we get a deal,
it's completely tribal across the board.
But it's not.
Terrible.
But I mean, it's not just tribalism, though. It's some people don't care if people die, and other people don't want people to die. You can't negotiate sometimes when there's people that literally want to kill people and people that don't. So, I mean, I think there's a way to negotiate if both sides come to care about people. But I'm sorry, the majority of our government, they're psychopaths. They don't care about people.
They are careful.
They don't care at all about them.